My family simply could not stand the fact that I was single. They treated it not as a life choice, but as a personal failure, a stain on their otherwise perfect family portrait. I was their project, their puzzle to be solved, their sad spinster daughter. So, for my sister's lavish engagement party, after a particularly cruel phone call, I did something reckless. I hired a fake fiancé. I just wanted him to be handsome and polite, a temporary shield against their pity. I had no idea the man I hired was a reclusive billionaire, or that my sister's own fiancé, the man they all adored, would be the one to recognize him and send our two carefully constructed worlds crashing into each other. The beginning of the end started, as it so often did, with a phone call from my mother. I was in my apartment, a cozy, sunlit space filled with books from floor to ceiling, a half-finished watercolor painting on my easel by the window. I was happy. It was a quiet, contented happiness, the kind that doesn't need an audience, which was precisely the kind my family could not comprehend. When I saw my mother's name flash on my phone, my stomach tightened into its familiar, conditioned knot. I took a deep breath, composed my features into a mask of pleasant neutrality, and answered. "Helena, darling?" Her voice chirped, bright and cheerful. It was the voice she used when she was about to ask for something, or, far worse, offer unsolicited advice disguised as love. "How are you? I was just thinking about you." For the next 10 minutes, I listened. I listened to a breathless, detailed account of my younger sister Olivia's wedding preparations. The calla lilies had been ordered, the string quartet had been booked, the deposit on the grand ballroom at the city's most exclusive country club had been paid. And Gregory, Olivia's fiancé, was just a saint, an absolute saint. He was taking Olivia to look at diamond bracelets that very afternoon. "He's just so successful, you know," my mother gushed, and I could practically hear her beaming through the phone. "A vice president at his investment firm already, and he's not even 35. He and Olivia are such a power couple. They just fit. It's what every mother dreams of for her daughter." The unspoken words hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. "Everything you are not." Then, after she had thoroughly painted the picture of my sister's perfect, successful, coupled life, she pivoted. Her voice softened, taking on the tone of a concerned doctor about to deliver a difficult diagnosis. "Now, honey, about the engagement party on Saturday. I was just on the phone with Gregory's mother, and she was asking who would be coming. I just wanted to check in with you. Are you seeing anyone new?" "No, Mom, I'm not. And I'm fine with that. My work at the library is going well. I'm taking a new pottery class." "That's nice, dear," she cut me off, the words pottery class dripping with condescension. "But this is a very important event. Gregory's parents will be there, his partners from the firm. It's a very high-powered, professional crowd. Everyone will be there as a couple. Your father and I, all your aunts and uncles. Olivia and Gregory, of course." She sighed, a long, mournful sound designed to convey the immense burden of my singleness. "I just don't want you to be the odd one out, sitting all by yourself. It looks a little sad. People will talk, they'll ask questions. It reflects on the family, you understand?" The humiliation was a physical thing, a hot flush that spread from my chest up to my cheeks. My singleness wasn't my own business. It was a public relations problem for the family, an embarrassment to be managed. "Are you sure you can't just bring a friend?" she pressed on, oblivious to my silent fury. "A male friend. You must have one. Just so you have someone to stand with. It would just make things so much less awkward for everyone." "Less awkward for you, you mean," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "Well, yes, for me too," she admitted, completely missing the point. "I just want to see you happy, darling. That's all any mother wants." I ended the call soon after, my hand trembling as I placed the phone back on the table. The conversation, a masterclass in passive aggression, had done its job. I looked around my beautiful, peaceful apartment, the place that was my sanctuary, and for the first time, I saw it through her eyes, not as a cozy haven of intellect and creativity, but as the lonely den of a spinster. The books were my only companions. The paintings were my sterile children. The quiet was not peace, it was emptiness. I sank onto my sofa, the weight of a lifetime of these small, cruel comparisons crushing me. I was tired, so profoundly, bone-deeply tired of defending my own life. I was tired of being their project. I was tired of their pity. A strange, reckless thought, born from the ashes of my humiliation, sparked in my mind. It was my mother's own suggestion, twisted into something new and dangerous. Bring a friend. A male friend. Fine. You want a man on my arm? You want a show? I'll give you a show. I'll give you the performance of a lifetime. My tears of hurt and anger dried. My trembling stopped. I sat up, a new wild energy surging through me. I walked over to my laptop and opened it, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I didn't search for dating apps. I didn't text any of my male friends to ask for an impossible favor. I typed 3 words into the search bar: high-end companion agency. The websites that came up were discreet, professional, and impossibly expensive. They promised sophisticated companions for any social or corporate event. They promised absolute discretion and unparalleled acting talent. It was insane. It was reckless. It was perfect. I clicked on the most exclusive-looking one, the Sterling Companion Group. Their top package was called the Platinum Partner. I filled out the form, my heart pounding with a mixture of terror and exhilarating defiance. Event, engagement dinner, black tie, role required, fiancé, desired characteristics, age 35 to 45, intelligent, polite, well-dressed, convincing, must be a good actor, no one flashy. The goal is believability, not spectacle. I entered my credit card information, the number so high it made me dizzy. But I didn't care. The price of one night of peace, one night of freedom from their pitying glances, was worth it. I clicked confirm. A message popped up on the screen. "Thank you for your booking, Miss Evans. Your request has been received. We have assigned our finest and most requested companion to your event. His name is Julian. He will contact you shortly to arrange a briefing. We guarantee you will be satisfied." I leaned back, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across my face. I had no idea who Julian was, but my family was about to meet my new fiancé. The show was about to begin. I woke up the next morning to a feeling I can only describe as an emotional hangover. A dull, throbbing headache pulsed behind my eyes, and my stomach was a churning sea of regret and adrenaline. What have I done? The question echoed in the quiet of my sunlit apartment. I had actually done it. I had spent an amount of money that made me feel physically ill to rent a human being, a stranger, to pose as my fiancé, all to appease my family's ridiculous, outdated social anxieties. The sheer, unadulterated madness of the act washed over me. I felt a wave of shame so intense it was dizzying. I was a grown woman, a respected librarian with a master's degree, and I had resorted to a plot from a bad romantic comedy. My finger hovered over the contact number for the Sterling Companion Group. I could cancel. I could absorb the non-refundable deposit as a steep but necessary tax on my own stupidity. I could call my mother, tell her I wasn't feeling well, and endure the subsequent week of concerned phone calls and passive-aggressive sighs. It would be easier. It would be saner. And then, just as I was about to make the call, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from my sister, Olivia. Hey, Mom told me you're trying to find a date for the party. So proud of you for putting yourself out there. My friend from work, Kevin, just broke up with his girlfriend. He's a little between jobs right now and lives in his parents' basement, but he's super nice. Should I give him your number? It would be so fun. I stared at the text message, at the cheerful, oblivious smiley face at the end of it. The pity, the condescension disguised as help. The assumption that I, Helena, would be grateful for a blind date with his unemployed, basement-dwelling acquaintance. And just like that, my shame and regret evaporated, burned away by a fresh, hot surge of defiant anger. The cancellation call was forgotten. My resolve hardened into a diamond. Oh, the game was on. It was so on. My silent sacrifice, as I now thought of it, had been a cornerstone of my relationship with my family for years. I was the quiet one, the bookish one, the one who had chosen a life of intellectual pursuits over the more socially acceptable path of marriage and material acquisition that Olivia had so effortlessly navigated. I had learned to endure their holiday gatherings with the stoicism of a battlefield medic. I remembered a Thanksgiving 2 years prior. My mother had, as a surprise, invited the recently divorced son of her neighbor, a man whose only personality trait seemed to be his extensive collection of beige sweaters. I was cornered for the entire evening, forced to listen to a monologue about his fantasy football league, while my entire family watched from across the room, giving me encouraging, pitying thumbs-ups. Olivia and Gregory had been there, their heads bent together, whispering and laughing, occasionally glancing over at me with looks of profound sympathy, the kind you'd give a 3-legged dog. I had smiled, I had nodded, I had endured it. I had endured it all because it was easier than fighting. It was easier than trying to explain to them that my life was not a tragedy because it didn't look like theirs. It was easier than defending my own happiness. But I was tired, so incredibly tired of being their project, their sad story. The email from Julian arrived the next afternoon. It was a model of professional discretion. Subject: your event on Saturday. Dear Miss Evans, my name is Julian, and I have been assigned by the Sterling Companion Group to accompany you to your event. I would like to arrange a preliminary meeting at your convenience to discuss backstory, character details, and any specific objectives you have for the evening. Please let me know what time and place would work best for you. Sincerely, Julian. His professionalism was a balm on my frazzled nerves. He wasn't some cheesy actor. He sounded like a consultant preparing for a business meeting. We agreed to meet for coffee the following day at a quiet, upscale cafe downtown, a neutral territory, far from my neighborhood and hopefully from anyone my family knew. I arrived first, my hands trembling slightly as I ordered a latte. I didn't know what to expect. A struggling actor? A handsome but vapid model? When he walked in, he was neither. He was handsome, yes, in a classic, understated way. Tall, with dark hair, intelligent eyes, and a quiet confidence that was immediately apparent. He wasn't dressed to impress. He wore a simple, well-fitting gray sweater and dark jeans. He looked less like an escort and more like a professor or an architect. He spotted me, smiled a small, genuine smile, and walked over. "Helena," he asked, his voice a calm, low baritone. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Julian." The briefing was surprisingly thorough. He pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook and a pen. "All right," he said, "all business. Let's build our story. How did we meet?" "At the annual fundraiser for the city library, the Literary Light Scala." "Perfect," he said, jotting it down. "Specific, believable, and it puts you in your element. How long have we been together?" 6 months. Serious, but not so long that they'd be suspicious they haven't heard about you before." "Good thinking. My profession?" "Architectural consultant," I supplied. It sounded respectable, intelligent, but vague enough to deflect detailed questions. He nodded, a small, appreciative smile on his lips. "Excellent. Now tell me about the key players. Your sister Olivia, her fiancé Gregory, your parents." I spent the next 20 minutes giving him a detailed breakdown of my family's dynamics, of their personalities, of the years of quiet humiliations. I expected him to be detached, to just take notes on his character cues. But he listened with a surprising intensity, his eyes focused on mine, occasionally asking a sharp, insightful question. "So," he summarized after I had finished, "your sister is the golden child, the center of the universe. Her fiancé is a status-obsessed financier who likely measures a man's worth by his stock portfolio. And your parents see your happiness as a direct reflection of their own social standing." He leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face. "This is not as simple as just showing up with a handsome date, Helena." "It's not?" I asked, a fresh wave of anxiety washing over me. "No," he said. "Your family doesn't respond to subtlety. Your showing up with a successful-looking partner won't just make them happy for you. It will feel like a challenge to them, especially to your sister and her fiancé. The goal tonight isn't to outshine them. The goal isn't to be flashy." He leaned forward, his eyes locking with mine, and he said the words that would change everything for me. "The goal is to be happy, genuinely, authentically, incandescently happy. Your quiet, unbothered happiness, your complete lack of need for their approval, will be the most confusing and infuriating thing in the world to them. That is our strategy." I stared at him, completely taken aback. I had hired an actor, a handsome face to be a prop in my small, pathetic drama. But the man sitting across from me was not a prop. He was a strategist, a brilliant one. He understood the situation with a clarity that I, who had been living it for 30 years, had never quite managed. I left the coffee shop feeling completely transformed. The shame and desperation I had felt were gone, replaced by a thrilling, dangerous sense of confidence and excitement. This was no longer a sad, desperate act. It was a conspiracy, a secret mission. The man I had hired was not just my fake fiancé, he was my ally, and for the first time in my entire life, I could not wait to go to a family party. The day of the engagement party arrived with a sense of impending doom that felt almost theatrical. A nervous, frantic energy buzzed under my skin all day. I second-guessed my decision 100 times. I would pace my apartment, my phone in my hand, my thumb hovering over the Sterling Companion Group's number, ready to cancel the entire insane charade. Then, the memory of my mother's pitying voice or my sister's smug satisfaction would flash in my mind, and my resolve would harden all over again. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was about me. It was about taking back control of my own story. That evening, I began to prepare for what felt less like a party and more like a covert operation. I stood before my closet, pushing past my usual array of sensible cardigans and comfortable dresses. At the very back, in a garment bag I rarely touched, was a dress I had bought on a whim a year ago but had never had the courage to wear. It was a simple, elegant sheath dress in a deep emerald green, a color that brought out the flecks of gold in my eyes. It wasn't flashy or revealing, but it was confident. It was the dress of a woman who was not afraid to take up space. It was my armor. As I was finishing my makeup, my hands still not entirely steady, the doorbell rang. My heart leapt into my throat. He's here. Taking one last deep breath, I opened the door. Julian stood there, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. He looked even more impressive than he had in the coffee shop. He wore a perfectly tailored dark gray suit, a crisp white shirt, and no tie, a look of effortless, understated elegance. He wasn't just handsome, he radiated a calm, steady, and frankly intimidating aura of competence. He smiled when he saw me, a slow, appreciative smile that felt surprisingly genuine. "Helena," he said, his voice a low, pleasant rumble, "you look absolutely stunning. Are we ready to execute this mission?" His use of the word mission was a small gift, a clever acknowledgement of our shared conspiracy. It made me feel less like a desperate woman who had hired a date and more like his partner in a strategic endeavor. My nervousness began to recede, replaced by a flicker of genuine excitement. "Ready as I'll ever be," I said, managing a real smile for the first time that day. He had arranged for a black town car to pick us up, a detail I hadn't expected. As we settled into the plush leather seats and pulled away into the evening traffic, he turned to me. "Final briefing," he said, his expression serious but his eyes twinkling. "We met 6 months ago at the Literary Lights Gala. I was there as a guest of an architectural firm I consult for. I was captivated by your intelligent conversation about Renaissance art, and I asked for your number. Our first date was at a quiet little Italian restaurant. We bonded over a shared love of vintage books and travel. I am an architectural consultant specializing in historical building restoration. And I am," he paused, reaching over to gently take my hand, "completely and utterly devoted to you." His hand was warm and steady around mine. His performance was so convincing, so total, that for a wild second, I almost believed it myself. "What if I can't pull it off?" I whispered, my last-minute nerves bubbling up. "What if they see right through us?" He gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "Helena," he said, his voice soft but firm, "look at me." I did. "The only person you need to convince tonight is yourself. You are a brilliant, accomplished, and fascinating woman. You are not the sad, pitiable character they have cast you as in their family play. Tonight, you are not playing a part. You are simply allowing yourself to be seen. Believe you deserve to be there, happy and confident, and they will have no choice but to follow suit. Just follow my lead," he added with a wink. "We're a team." By the time we arrived at the grand entrance of the Oak Haven Country Club, my fear had been replaced by a strange, exhilarating calm. The building was ablaze with lights, and the sound of clinking glasses and sophisticated jazz spilled out from the open doors. This was their world, a world of status and performance. And for the first time, I was walking into it, not as an apology, but as a statement. We stepped out of the car and walked up the stone steps, Julian's hand resting confidently in the small of my back. At the doorway, I paused, taking a final deep breath. He leaned in close, his voice a warm whisper in my ear. "Showtime." We walked in. The effect was instantaneous. Heads turned, conversations lulled. I had spent a lifetime trying to be invisible at these events. And now, with this handsome, impossibly poised man at my side, we were the center of gravity in the room. I saw my family holding court near the fireplace. I saw my mother's eyes widen in shock, her hand flying to her chest. I saw my sister, Olivia's perfect smile, falter, her eyes narrowing with a mixture of disbelief and, I was thrilled to see, a flicker of pure, unadulterated jealousy. Her spotlight had just been stolen. And I saw Gregory, her fiancé, look Julian up and down, his expression one of competitive alpha male appraisal. We approached them, my arm linked through Julian's, my head held high. This was the moment, the first test. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice clear and steady, a perfect imitation of a confident, happy woman. "Olivia, Gregory, I am so glad we could make it." I turned to the man beside me. "I'd like you all to meet my fiancé, Julian." Julian stepped forward, a charming, easy smile on his face. He shook my father's hand firmly. "A pleasure to finally meet you, sir. Helena has told me so much about you." He nodded to my mother. "And you must be Martha. Your daughter's kindness and grace are clearly a family trait." My mother, for the first time in my memory, was speechless, just blushing and stammering her thanks. He then turned to the golden couple. "Olivia, Gregory, congratulations. The place looks magnificent." His performance was a masterpiece. He was charming but not obsequious, respectful but not intimidated. He was in every way their equal, if not their superior. He treated me with a quiet, constant affection, his hand always finding mine, his eyes always seeking me out in the conversation. It was working. It was actually impossibly working. I watched my family completely disarmed, struggling to recalibrate their entire perception of me. They were off balance, confused, and for the first time in my entire life, they were utterly speechless. The first part of the mission had been a resounding success, and the best part, the most dangerous and delicious part, was yet to come. The Oak Haven Country Club was a world I did not belong to, and it was designed to make you feel it. The long, winding driveway was lined with ancient manicured oak trees. Valets in crisp, military-style uniforms rushed to open the doors of arriving luxury cars. The air itself seemed different here, thinner, smelling of old money, expensive perfume, and a quiet, unshakable sense of its own importance. For years, I had dreaded every event held in this place. It was my family's natural habitat and my own personal social wilderness. Tonight, however, as I stepped out of the black town car with Julian at my side, I did not feel dread. I felt a strange, thrilling sense of calm. I was not walking into the lion's den alone. I was walking in with my own, much more dangerous lion. His hand rested lightly on the small of my back, a gesture that was both a comfort and a quiet assertion of our relationship. As we walked through the grand, columned entrance, I could feel his steadying presence beside me. "Ready?" he murmured, his voice a low vibration only I could hear. I took a deep breath and nodded. Showtime. The main ballroom was a glittering spectacle of gold and white. A string quartet played softly in the corner, their music a sophisticated backdrop to the sound of 200 conversations. And there, near the massive stone fireplace, was my family, holding court. My mother, Martha, was glowing, resplendent in a shimmering gold dress. My sister, Olivia, the bride-to-be, stood beside her, looking radiant and smug, a massive diamond engagement ring flashing on her finger. And next to her was Gregory, her fiancé, looking every bit the part of the successful young financier in his impeccably tailored suit. The moment we entered their line of sight, the conversations in their small circle faltered. I saw my mother's eyes widen, her hand flying to her chest in a gesture of pure theatrical shock. I saw Olivia's perfect smile tighten, her eyes narrowing as she took in the handsome, impossibly poised man at my side. I saw the competitive glint in Gregory's eyes as he sized up his new, unexpected rival. We approached them, and I felt a surge of power so unfamiliar it was almost dizzying. For the first time, I was not the one approaching with an apology in my eyes. I was the one they were desperate to understand. "Mom, Dad, Olivia, Gregory, I am so glad we could make it." I turned to the man beside me, my smile feeling, for the first time, completely genuine. "I'd like you all to meet my fiancé, Julian." Julian's performance was nothing short of a masterpiece. He was the embodiment of charm. He shook my father's hand firmly, looking him in the eye. "A pleasure to finally meet you, sir. Helena has told me so many wonderful things about you." Then he turned to my mother, taking her hand and brushing a feather-like kiss near her knuckles, an old-world gesture that made her blush like a schoolgirl. "And you must be Martha. I can certainly see where your daughters get their grace." My mother, a woman who was never at a loss for words, was completely and utterly speechless. She just stammered and beamed. Julian then turned to the golden couple, his smile warm and genuine. "Olivia, Gregory, my sincerest congratulations. This is a beautiful celebration. May your life together be as lovely as this evening."
He was flawless. Over the next hour, he effortlessly navigated the treacherous waters of my family's social circle. They peppered him with questions, their attempts to uncover a flaw, a weakness, completely useless. When my mother asked about his work, he spoke with an easy, self-deprecating humor about the challenges of historical building restorations. When my father tried to talk business, Julian deflected with a grace that made my father feel respected, but left him with no actual information. He constantly, skillfully redirected the praise back to me. "Oh, my eye for architecture is nothing compared to Helena's eye for Renaissance art," he'd say. "You should hear her talk about Botticelli. It's breathtaking." I watched, mesmerized, as he single-handedly dismantled the narrative my family had built around me for 30 years. With every word, with every affectionate glance in my direction, he was rewriting their story. I was no longer sentimental Helena or the sad single one. I was the brilliant, beloved fiancé of this charming, intelligent, and impressive man. My sister Olivia's smile grew tighter and tighter as the evening wore on. Her spotlight, for the first time in her life, was being shared. The true turning point, the moment the world shifted on its axis, came when Gregory's own colleagues arrived. A small, loud group of young men in expensive suits, their faces flushed with success. Gregory's chest puffed out. This was his world. He was desperate to show off. He greeted his boss, a senior partner at the investment firm, and then, with a magnanimous air, he decided to introduce his new, inferior brother-in-law-to-be. It was a power play, an attempt to re-establish his dominance. "Helena, Julian," he said, leading the group over, "I want you to meet some of my team." He made the introductions, and then, with a smug little smile, he gestured to Julian. "And this is Helena's fiancé, Julian. He's an architectural consultant." He said the words with a faint, almost imperceptible sneer, a clear dismissal of such a soft profession compared to his own world of high finance. The group of bankers nodded politely. But Gregory's boss, a sharp older man named Mr. Abernathy, froze. His polite party smile vanished. He stared at Julian, his eyes wide with a look of pure, unadulterated disbelief. "I'm sorry?" Mr. Abernathy said, his voice suddenly strained. "Did you say Julian?" Gregory was confused by his boss's reaction. He said, "Yes, Julian. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name." He turned to Julian, expecting a simple, unremarkable answer. But it was Mr. Abernathy who whispered the name, his voice filled with a reverence and awe that was almost religious. "Croft," he breathed. "Julian Croft." The name meant nothing to my mother or my sister, but Gregory's reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The confident, arrogant smirk on his face did not just fade, it collapsed. The color drained from his face, leaving him a ghastly, pale white. His hand, which had been resting confidently on Olivia's back, dropped to his side as if it had lost all strength. He stared at the calm, polite man before him as if he had just seen a god or a demon. "Olivia, what's wrong with him?" Olivia hissed, annoyed. "Who is Julian Croft?" Gregory couldn't seem to work his mouth. It was Mr. Abernathy who answered, his eyes still locked on Julian, never having broken his gaze.
"He's not a consultant," he said, his voice a low, stunned whisper. "He is the Julian Croft, the founder of Elysium Systems. He's a ghost, a legend. He's one of the most powerful and ruthless venture capitalists in the world."
Gregory finally found his voice. It was a choked, strangled sound. My firm," he stammered, his eyes wide with a dawning, sickening horror. "We spent 8 months trying to get a meeting with his fund last year. We couldn't even get past his executive assistant." The revelation detonated in the center of the small group, sending silent, devastating shockwaves through my family. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Olivia stared, open-mouthed, at the man beside me. And I was just as shocked as they were. My heart had stopped. My carefully constructed one-night-only plan had just spun wildly, terrifyingly, and spectacularly out of my control. The polite, charming actor I had hired for a few $1,000s was, in fact, a real, living, breathing billionaire, and he was pretending to be my fiancé. The name, Julian Croft, hung in the air, a name that apparently meant nothing to me, but meant the entire world to my sister's fiancé. The silence that followed his choked, terrified whisper was a living thing. It was a silence so absolute, so heavy, that I could hear the frantic, panicked thumping of my own heart. I stared at Julian, at this polite, charming man I had hired from a catalog of companions, and tried to reconcile the image of the architectural consultant with the mythical, godlike figure Gregory and his boss were staring at in open-mouthed horror. A billionaire? The founder of Elysium Systems? It made no sense. My simple, controllable plan for a quiet evening of social revenge had just gone supernova. I think I was in a deeper state of shock than even my own family. They were merely processing a social catastrophe. I was processing a complete breakdown of my own reality. My mind was a frantic, screaming chaos. What have I done? Who is this man? It was Julian who, with an almost supernatural calm, took control of the imploding situation. He saw the sheer panic in my eyes. His hand, which was resting on my arm, gave a gentle, almost imperceptible squeeze, a silent message that said, "I've got this. Just follow my lead." He turned to the group of frozen, horrified financiers, and a slow, charming, self-deprecating smile spread across his face. It was a smile of such immense, easy confidence that it instantly made their terror seem foolish. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice a calm, smooth baritone, "I believe you've mistaken me for someone far more important. My name is Julian, and tonight," he turned to look at me, his eyes filled with the warmth that felt impossibly real, "I am just Helena's fiancé, and I am the luckiest man in the room. Now, if you'll excuse us," he said, his hand moving to the small of my back. "Darling, I believe you promised me a dance." And with that, he guided us away from the wreckage, leaving my family and Gregory's colleagues standing there like a tableau of shattered egos. He led me towards the dance floor, his hand a firm, steady presence that kept me from simply turning and running out of the building. As we stepped onto the floor and he took me in his arms, the string quartet began to play a slow, beautiful waltz. The entire party had become a theater, and we were the sole actors on the stage. I could feel hundreds of pairs of eyes on us. The air was thick with whispers. I could see my family huddled in a corner, their heads bent together in a frantic, panicked conference. My mother was gesturing wildly. My sister Olivia was staring at us, her face a mask of pure venomous jealousy. And Gregory? Gregory looked like he was going to be physically ill. The night was no longer about his engagement. It was now about the unbelievable mystery of his fiancé's quiet library sister and her mythical billionaire date.
"Are you okay?" he murmured, his voice close to my ear as he expertly led me through the steps of the waltz. "No," I whispered back, my voice trembling. I am the opposite of okay. Who are you? Why are you doing this? You're Julian Croft, the CEO of Elysium Systems? He looked down at me, a genuinely apologetic look in his intelligent eyes. I am, he admitted quietly, and I am truly sorry, Helena. This was not how I intended the evening to go. I should have been honest with you. Why? I asked, the question a desperate plea. Why take a job like this? He was silent for a moment, his gaze distant. I suppose I was conducting an experiment, he said. My life has become a bubble. I am surrounded by people who want something from me. They don't see a person. They see a walking vault. I was tired of it. I wanted to see if I could just be a man for a night. Meet people who had no idea who I was. Your request, when it came through the agency, it was different. You weren't asking for a flashy trophy to show off. Your notes said, the goal is believability, not spectacle. You just wanted a kind, intelligent man to be a shield for you. I was intrigued, so I took the assignment myself. I stared at him, my mind reeling. My small, desperate act of rebellion had accidentally intersected with the existential crisis of a reclusive billionaire. So what now? I whispered, my panic returning. He smiled down at me. Now, he said, we finish the mission. We will dance, we will eat cake, and we will be the happiest, most in love couple in this room. We will give them the performance of their lives. And we did. For the rest of the night, he was the perfect fiancé. He never left my side. He held my hand. He laughed at my jokes. He made me feel like the most brilliant, fascinating woman in the world. And under the warmth of his focused attention, a strange thing happened. I stopped acting. I simply was. I was confident. I was happy. And as he had predicted, my quiet, unbothered happiness was the thing that drove my family madder than any display of wealth could have. When it was time to leave, they intercepted us at the door. My mother's earlier pity had been replaced by a fawning, desperate adoration. Julian, Mr. Croft, it was such an honor. You must come for a private dinner at our home next week, she gushed. Julian was polite, but distant. Thank you, Martha, but my schedule is quite demanding. My priority right now is spending time with Helena. He then guided me out the door, leaving my family standing on the threshold of their own party, looking on as we left, for the first time in their lives, completely powerless. In the quiet of the town car on the way back to my apartment, the silence was heavy, but not awkward. The job was over. Well, he said, finally, a wry smile on his face. My duties as your hired fiancé are now concluded. He paused, then turned to me, his expression serious. However, if the position of real date is open, I would like to formally submit my application. He reached into his pocket and pulled out not a generic business card, but a simple personal card with just his name and a private phone number. He handed it to me. I took it, my fingers brushing against his. I looked down at the card, at the simple, elegant font. My entire world had been turned upside down in the space of a single evening. My petty plan for a small social victory had backfired into something more, something real and terrifying and full of an impossible, dazzling potential. He dropped me off at my apartment, and as the town car pulled away, I stood on the sidewalk, looking at the small, powerful card in my hand. My vindication tonight wasn't seeing the look of horror on my family's faces.
It was the strange, thrilling realization that by trying to invent a fake life to please them, I had accidentally stumbled into a real one that was infinitely more interesting. And for the first time, it was a life that was entirely, completely my own. What an incredible twist! One of the most satisfying and unexpected endings we've ever had. What do you think Helena should do? Should she call him? Let us know what you think happens next in the comments below. If you loved this amazing story, please show your support by hitting that like button and be sure to subscribe for more daily stories with unbelievable twists. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.